I'm Maya Palacio for Media Maya, partnered with Channel 82. And today I'm here with a former Premier in the year of 2003, Premier Alex Scott. Now, Mr. Scott, can I actually call you Premier or Mr.? What's the title that you want to be used with?
If I had my druthers, I'd say Alec, but I don't want to get you in trouble, so you can call me whatever you want.
I will call you Premier Scott. Always think it's good to keep
Thanks.
that balance. I mean, you're a Premier, you're going to always be Premier to me. Okay, so let's jump right into this conversation because I had initially talked to you about social media and this day and age and my generation and your past generation. So my first question to you actually is, do you know what Twitter is?
Yes, don't know how to use it.
Can you explain to me right now, really simply, what is Twitter?
Twitter is a very effective way of making short communication links with friends and all.
All right, yeah, I would say that's pretty accurate. All right, so as being a former politician, and if you know a little bit about Twitter and what it does now today, a lot of our government and officials are all over Twitter right now, using major different platforms. It could either be Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, but for this conversation, Twitter. And they're able to just put out their opinions, put out their views in an instant, and that all of us kind of connect with them and see that. Now, if you had that option back in the day, would you use it?
Sparingly.
Sparingly.
Very sparingly.
And why sparingly?
Because too much information makes you too familiar, and therefore when you really want to make an important point, folks are hearing you so often that they don't listen for that particular moment, for that particular point you want them to pay special attention to. So when they see the Premier, it should be a rare occasion rather than a Trumpian experience.
Okay, that's a good viewpoint to see it. But I have to argue the fact that even during the pandemic, though, having it has been quite a good resource for the people of Bermuda to be in constant alertness about what's going on. So other than that circumstance, you're saying that on a general, in an everyday lifestyle, they really shouldn't be putting out their viewpoints every day like they do?
Well, I would operate probably at two levels. There would be the Twitter release statement, short piece, but there would be also using the main media, print or electronic, to reach the many folks who aren't on Twitter. And I don't know the universe in Bermuda who are frequenting Twitter. So therefore, who am I talking to, or who am I missing, or who am I leaving out when it is an important national point you want to get out? The Twitter audience may be hundreds, maybe thousands, but there may not be some of the key people. It may be a point for seniors. I don't know how many seniors
Yeah,
are.
you got a point, because even though the government here still like puts out on all the other platforms, they still do. Twitter specifically is for, to be honest, my generation. My generation is like the main source for why they would use Twitter. But it's also been known that my generation, let's be clear, I'm from the age group of, let's say, 20 to 30 would be me. I'm 23.
I'm from the age group of 70 to 80.
So yeah, and you probably won't, okay, I get it, you probably won't be on Twitter, but I still want to try to get a viewpoint from your perspective as to back in your time, though. Back in your time, if this was, you know, something that you could have, would you allow all your ministers to have their own platform? Oh,
I would never say no to anyone who felt comfortable with it, because they would be reaching their audience, they would be reaching a audience. But when I think in terms of the government's audience, I want to know the demographic that is being included with Twitter or with WhatsApp or whatever else is out there.
But they have algorithms now, so you can actually check that.
Yeah, but the person has to live on the electronic media, on the social media, for even the algorithm to work for them. I go on, what is it now? YouTube. And they know that I follow F1. So therefore, if I'm on F1, Formula One racing, up comes a local ad. Or if I'm following Trevor Noah, up comes a local. But my wife is not any of those things. She's sitting right beside me. The information from, if it was a government, would be important to her, but she'll never see it because she never uses YouTube. So therefore, she does pick up the Royal Gazette. She will listen to Hot. So to reach her and her friends, to reach others like her, you can use YouTube, Twitter, WhatsApp. She's on WhatsApp. So yes, it's a tool. I think it's becoming more and more important, but your question initially was, in yesteryear, would you use it? I was one of the first to start using the BlackBerry and all, but others were saying, how do you use that? Why do you use that? Emails were exceptional then, but I would get on it and utilize it and wonder why the others didn't utilize it more. But when it came to an important statement, I sat down before the cameras, ZBM, ZFB, or whoever it was at the time, VSB, and made a national statement.
But that's because it was the only choice, though.
That was because it was the only choice. I would have included a Twitter.
If you could have.
If I could.
Okay.
The communication lady, Mrs. Lattimore, who managed us from a communication point of view, she would have certainly have said, Premier, you'll want to get this statement out on Twitter. So I said, well, summarize it and put it out.
Okay, awesome. All right, so we're going to end it right there for a moment, and then we'll be right back with a few Twitter games. All right, everyone, and now we are back and we're going to jump into a bit of a Twitter game. I'm going to have Premier Scott read out a couple of the tweets that have been made by current politicians. Yes. And also, just want to get a standpoint here. Everyone knows that once you put something on social media, it is there forever. So you got to be careful what you say and what what comes after that. So, okay, first one, here we go.
First one is, I am fully committed to closing the gender pay gap. That was done by Jason Hayward, JP. Yeah, I'd do that. I would have said that.
You would have said that?
Oh, he's right to say that.
Okay. Well, here's my question about it, though. What if it doesn't happen?
That's his hard luck. He should have put it out in the first place. No. Therein lies the challenge. Remember I said earlier, you're putting out information. Put out information that you know you're going to be able to back up, or don't. You could hurt yourself or help yourself. Mm-hmm. If he is seen to fight on that, then he's going to help himself. He's branding himself. But if he puts it out and then the election's over and and they can ask him within 2 or 3 days, Mr. Hayward, you said that you were going to help close the pay gap for gender. When do you start? Well, and not that he would say this. Okay. Well, we have to do plans, and we have to think about it. I want to take it to my... Shouldn't have put it out. I suggest that to anyone who asks, I say, when you say a statement, I'm going to do it, already have done it. So therefore, you know it's going to come true. When you put out, we're thinking about closing the pay gap between genders. It's something we want to work on. I would have it done. And then, in 4 or 5 days, I said, we had mentioned that we're going to commit to the closing pay gap. This is what we've done. We've set up a committee, and they're going to report next week.
Okay, right. So yeah, because when you put this out, even I was just like, that's a big commitment to make.
Yes.
And I was concerned myself, well then, who's going to be a part of it? Who's going to do things with it? Like
all that he would have, I would hope that he has all the answers sorted out.
All right, here comes the next one. Okay.
I'm glad this wasn't around when I was there.
All right, so this one's actually a 2-part.
Okay.
So I'm going to get you to read this one first.
Okay. Oh, this is a book. I sent this letter to Craig Kennedy today. In the interest of transparency, I am sharing it with the public. Over the past 4 months, I have continued to reach out to be bipartisan and transparent. I hope that we can continue to work together in the best interest of Bermuda DB.
Okay, so that was the premier, and that was actually following his statement about the by-election that OBA wanted to have another by-election. And so his statement was to ask the opposition leader as to, will you be having another one following this? And stating to the whole public that these by-elections cost $30,000 each. How many more are you trying to have? So he was trying to get that answer and saying that he wasn't able to get connection. And here's the response from the opposition leader.
Mr. Premier, please do not get sidetracked by fake news. We need you to concentrate on fixing the economy. If you want me to help you know my number, just what WhatsApp me. Exactly. See, it's a new language now for me.
Just WhatsApp me, yep. What do you think about that interaction of the leader and then the opposition leader?
Intriguing, because you tend to, or at least those two are beginning to now get it back and forward. And the audience, and who is the audience, it's limited, they're going to say, either look at those two, they should just meet and settle it, and there are folks who are being left out of that. For instance, that's the first time I think I'm seeing that exchange. But if it had been done in the conventional way, print, statement, to the broader public, I'm on board. Now, I'll hear about that through my son, who's always on the social media. And so look how an important exchange can get watered down in today's society between a generational audience.
Because not everyone's going to be able to see it.
Not everyone's going to see it. And then I'm going to say, well, I'm left out of it. If it was important, he would have made it. That's just those two going at it. Because if it was important, they would have said it on the broad media. But my son would say, this is the media nowadays.
It might. He's not wrong, because it is the media nowadays. And while this was happening, it's in the cusp of a pandemic, so they weren't meeting Fridays like they were before.
Yes.
But then again, my generation would have been left out from that because we don't actually listen in on the House meetings. So where there is debate, not most of us are tuned in. But yeah, that is something that, like for instance, your generation would not get to see that type of interaction.
No, but now that Twitter exists, a premier and an opposition leader must use it, because not to use it, they don't reach the younger generation, which is the future coming in, which is your young executives sitting at their desks. They're not going to look at Roy Gazette or be reading, but they'll take up the phone and see it. And so therefore, the communication, the Twitter is now an important tool for someone to use, for the premier to use, but the premier shouldn't overlook the demographic that he serves, meaning the broader public. So his communications people should make sure that as the Twitter goes out, it's reinforced by what he says in a press conference.
Now I want to give you one more to read, and then you'll cut it off. There you go.
All right, what do we have here? In the Royal Gazette, today Premier David Burt said in reply to a call for an election delay that prolonged division was the last thing the country needed. So why call an election during hurricane season and a pandemic in the first place? We have already had one hurricane.
And that was from?
That was from Honorable Michael Dunkley. All right. Now, that's a good example. Michael Dunkley is well, I was just going to say he's my generation. Actually, he's younger. Everybody's younger than I am. But he is now, Michael Dunkley, that is now using Twitter. He's not saying, oh, well, I don't use social media. I'll just put this out on the Royal Gazette, full stop. And so he's right to use it. Again, I may or may not have, as a consumer of information, I may or may not have seen it. And so that becomes, again, an exchange that takes place away from
a different generation.
A different generation, which I keep saying away from a different generation. I keep saying those who use and those who don't. It might be instructive for someone to literally try to determine how large, how small, who uses the social media and who doesn't.
Okay.
And then all it will do is give you a roadmap, a communication roadmap as to how you not ignore social media, but how you integrate the social media into your, let's call it formal print, broadcasting, and then you know how you're reaching, who you're reaching.
And more people.
Yeah, because
exactly.
The language probably changes on social media. You're talking to a younger generation who don't want a speech.
I mean, it has to change too because the characters are just
so
so small.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so, okay, we're going to cut that game now. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be right back, so stay tuned. Okay, everyone, we're back again on my Palacio for Media Maya with Channel A2 and here with the former Premier, but I'm going to call him Premier, Alex Scott. All right, so right now we're going to jump into a game and it's called What's More Bermudian?
All right,
okay.
All right, here we go.
Get ready, locked in.
I'm locked in.
Because these answers, they mean a big
These
deal.
are
you know?
tough.
First one, loquats or cherries?
Cherries.
Really? I do not expect that answer. Second one, Ice Queen or Mr. Chicken?
Mr. Chicken.
Rental bike or Twizy?
Rental bike.
Gumbays or majorettes?
Have mercy. Oh, now you're talking to a man. At my age, it has to be the Gumbays.
Okay, Gumbays. Number 5, Match Me If You Can leaves or aloe?
Match Me If You Can leaves.
Number 6, a road rash or muffler burn?
Road rash.
Number 7, honeysuckles or parrotfish?
Honeysuckles, I guess.
Number 8, pink sand or the reefs?
Pink sand.
Number 9, rooftops or Bermuda grass?
Rooftops.
And number 10, Johnny Barnes or codfish and potatoes?
Codfish and potatoes.
Okay, anyway, I do want to ask people. Number 11, dark and stormy or swizzle?
Well, me, dark and stormy.
Dark and stormy. Number 12, carnival or cup match?
Cup match.
Cup match. Number 13, bus or ferry?
Bus.
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 Number 14, Bermuda shorts or polo shirt?
Shorts.
Shorts?
Shorts.
Gonna go for shorts? All right, cool. And that's all. Okay, and that's the end of the game. Thank you so much.
I know.
When we come right back, we're going to be talking a little bit more about the upcoming election. So tune in. Welcome back, everyone, and we're going to dive into some really deep conversation that everyone on the island is obviously talking about, the upcoming general election. Okay, Premier Scott.
Yes.
I'm going to start off with a pretty hard one. What are your opinions on the Free Democratic Movement and their leader, Mark Bean?
I know Mark had influence over his early political development. Disappointed that he should choose to run or set up a party against the party he was leader. But And here is the point. I've fought for 30, 40 years of my life to establish the PLP so that we would have many of the freedoms we didn't have in the 40s, 50s. And Mark has the right to use what we fought for, even though I don't agree with what he's doing. Now, from a political point of view, I think it's early days for his party when it comes to policies. I don't hear him or his party articulating significant differences, policy initiatives that would make me say, yes, I see why he is choosing to give people an option to the PLP or an option to the OBA. So I think it's early days for him. A little more thought should have gone into it, or they should have at least announced their intention earlier so the people could digest and say, oh, I see what you're saying. But right now, he's not saying enough for me to think it was warranted him running against his old party.
Okay. Well, that'll actually lead me to my next question. You're saying that it's too early for him. And we had actually read a tweet earlier about starting or even calling this general election. Like, Prima Burt called the general election in the midst of a pandemic. They still had about almost 2 years before they had to call another one.
Yes.
So how do you feel about him calling this election during the pandemic? Is this something you would have done?
It is the political thing to do. Sir John Swan did it to the PLP when we were in our most difficult position. He called one election, then 2 years another election, and he pushed us right down. That's hardball politics. Now, the thing to do with the public interest raises a question is, did Prima Burt call this election to push the OBA down? And if he was aware of the FDM, cut him off at the legs? Or did Premier Burt call the election now because the pandemic has been a challenge like no other challenge we've had? He's going to have to work for what I call preparing Bermuda for the new normal. New abnormal. It's never going to go back to what it was. So Premier Burt has to now come up with policy initiatives that will see Bermuda not only regain the economic ground that it had, regain all of the accomplishments that the government had established, but, and this is the reason to call an election, he most probably will have to come up with new initiatives. 2 years that you said he had left would have left him fighting politically with the OBA or the FDM, who would be preparing for the election, which would have been 2 years down the road, 6 months down the road, 1 year down the road. But if he has an election now, clears the debt, gets the support from the public, now he has 4 to 5 years to put those new initiatives not only before the public, but to the utilization of the public. And therefore, Bermuda, in very short order, will be equal to the challenges that will lay ahead in the next 3, 4 years. Short version is, he's looking to the future, not looking at what is happening right now.
Okay, interesting viewpoint. Okay, so my next question for you then would be, I don't know if you've heard actually, have you heard that people are looking for a national debate from all three leaders?
Yes.
You have heard that,
yeah.
Okay. And if you may have also read that Premier David Burt has said that he will not have a national debate with any party who cannot form a government. So in that correlation, talking about the Free Democratic Movement, they have 15 candidates. And so he believes that that's not sufficient enough to form a government. So he will not have the debate. How do you feel about him denying the country is what we're all asking for, a national debate?
Oh, I would differ with him totally on that because number one, maybe it's my communication background, and we've been talking, this whole program we've had, and I've enjoyed it, by the way. This whole program we've had is about communicating with the public, or communications with the public and getting information to them. A debate gives the public you serve, and that's the important point. You are not there to be premier of a party. You're not there to be popular and get good poll numbers. You're there to serve the public interest. Anything else, you shouldn't be there. And so therefore, if there are individuals calling for a debate, of course you arrange a debate. I don't care if the FDM only has one follower. That one person deserves, when it comes to the general election and the principles that the PLP fought for and stood for, that requires your response. They should know what you're going to, why you had the election. That could be a debate topic. What you intend to do if you win the election. That could be a debate topic. And you have a responsibility to count for your stewardship. The one member who is following the FDM, or the 100 members who are following the FDM, the whole OBA membership have a right to challenge you on what you've done and what you haven't done. So yes, a debate is the most important, I think, and I don't agree with Premier Burt not choosing to just openly debate. Okay,
awesome. Yeah, that's definitely been the biggest topic of conversation about having this national debate, because Bermuda hasn't really had one. And now that there is a third party, it's like this is the perfect time to have something where you have three persons going head to head to head. Okay, so my final question about the election would be, who do you think is going to win?
What you should have said, how much is the PLP going to win by?
Okay, so you're
No. I think the PLP will win. It will be a shot across the PLP's bow if they drop one seat, because that means that there is not the support there that they had last time, and I think they stand a chance of picking up 1 or 2 seats. And as an old PLP premier, as someone who fought with others to get them to this point, if they pick up seats, that will be a problem for them. So the PLP can't win in this election. If you lose, that says, well, you're losing support. If you pick up seats, that's going to be more individuals sitting on your back bench. And you know what they say about idle hands. Mm-hmm. So therefore, Premier Burt will now have more potential problems on his back bench than he has now. I'll give you a short anecdote. We entertained a British delegation many, many years ago. They had just gone through an election, and we were talking to the finance minister, and he said, you know, I was in England, sitting there on the front benches with my colleagues, and I said, how nice it is to be victorious and look over there on the other side of Parliament. There is the enemy. And his colleague says, no, that's the opposition. The enemy are behind us. Behind you, you have your own members who are the backbench. They have ambition. They want to be ministers. They want to have their policy ideas acted upon. And so if Premier Burt gets more members than he currently has, he's going to have more potential challenges on his benches than across the way.
Okay, so actually I want to follow up with that and ask you, do you think that as an island of our size, do we have way too many constituencies? 36?
It's obviously that's an excellent question. Never thought of it specifically, but no. I think Mrs. Brown Evans put it this way: rights given shouldn't be lightly taken away. 36 constituent, no, we have what? 36 members. We're broken down to 36 constituencies. But this means that Bermuda has a unique opportunity for representation. This means that a small group, about 1,200 people, 1,000 to 1,200 people, have their own representative. And if you break it down, then that number gets larger. Bermuda has the opportunity, Bermudians have the opportunity to have good representation if they have a good MP. And if we had smaller constituencies, then that would be watering down the representation we currently have.
Okay. All right. So we're going to end it there, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Again, I'm Maya Palacio with Media Maya, partner with Channel 82. And once again, I have the brilliant former Premier in 2003, Alex Scott, with us today. So we're going to jump into this segment. It's actually another game for you guys, and it's called Which Politician Tweeted This?
Ooh, okay.
All right. So see if you get this first one. Quote, I am fully committed to closing the gender pay gap. Was it A, Minister Jason Hayward, B, Premier Paula Cox, C, Susan Jackson, JP, MP, OBA?
Of course, I'm cheating. It was Hayward.
Okay, I just want to see if you're paying attention, so I just have to give it to you. All right, cool. All right, next one. Who tweeted this? Maturity has to do with the experience you've had, not how many birthdays you've celebrated. Was it A, Nick Kemp of OBA, B, Minister Diallo Urbane of PLP, or C, Mark Bean of FDM?
Ooh. Let's give it to Mark.
You're wrong on this one. It's actually B, Mr. Diallo Urbane of PLP.
Education Minister.
Yeah, the Education Minister tweeted that. Okay, next tweet. Use your right to vote, even if it's to express your displeasure. As the employer, it is your duty to hire, fire, and give proper evaluation of your employees. We politicians work for you, the people. Never forget that. Was it A, Senator Dwayne Robinson of OBA, B, candidate Jason Wade of PLP, or C, candidate Gavin Smith of FDM?
I'm going to get it wrong, so let's be consistent. Third person, Gavin Smith.
Don't figure yourself so hard. You're wrong, though. it was actually A, Senator Dwayne Robinson of OBA.
All right, all right. Yes, he does say things like that.
Okay, my last one for you is, who tweeted this? He complained about spending $30K on a by-election, but then calls a general election 2 years early that will cost near $1 million during COVID, and that's okay? Typical Bartonomics. Was it A, Catherine Kemp of OBA, B, Craig Kenner, opposition leader of OBA, or C, Desmond Crockwell of FDM?
Let's say the opposition leader, Kenner.
You are incorrect, sir. It was actually A, Catherine Kemp of OBA.
All right, yes. Now, thinking back, yeah. She said it on Twitter. I wouldn't see that.
See, there it is. Look, the generational gap. There it is. All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. We'll definitely come back to you with more shows like this. And thank you, Premier Scott, for joining me.
Thank you for having me. This is a very important initiative that you have. Keep on keeping on.
Thank you. Thank you, Bermuda, so much for tuning in. Thank you so much, Prima Scott, for being here and joining us once again. And everyone, go check your Twitter. And also make sure you're following more than just one person. Keep the conversation rolling on all your platforms and don't just be zoned in on one side because you're missing out on a whole different type of conversation.